I'm honored to be giving this interview. I know we've known each other for a while, but you are a pillar in this community, in this town, in this state, and for so many reasons. Like, I'm inspired that you have done so much with your life. Because I'm one of those people that's just busy in all these directions. So to see how you've done it successfully in so many ways and just arenas and through people and by yourself and in partnership, like it's just your life is inspiring to me. So I just want you to know that I'm glad to be here and I'm honored to ask you these questions because what? Like, who are you? This is great.
Well, ironically enough, I'm happy to be here with you because I am so inspired by the work you do and your energy, and I feel so excited to be working with you finally. Like, you know what I mean? Like on this,
Yeah.
on all the stuff that we're doing at the institute and so on. So yeah. So I'm happy
It's gonna be
too.
great. Yeah, we're
It's gonna
working
be
on some
awesome.
exciting stuff, and we'll see it
Right.
birthed into the community, and I think we'll see the fruit of that too. You know, so many people will be able to be affected positively, and really just empowering people to start their own stuff too, right? Like because of the projects
Exactly.
that we're doing. So, I totally just see legacy on legacy on legacy with all the stuff that we're putting out.
Well
Um,
said.
Tell me about your role with the Institute of Public Scholarships. What do you do here? I know we're talking to different people. Like, what's your role? How did you get here? What's your job?
Oh boy, how did I get here? No, I'm just, um,
Right.
I'm gonna blame it on Michelle. No, in part. I
Right,
mean,
right.
I always say, whatever she's doing, if she asks, I say yes. Because I think um, she's one of those people, and I think one of those rare people that, like, however she moves in the world is not just good for her, but it's good for the planet.
Mm,
And so I'm like, yeah, like she keeps me, I think, she gives me opportunity to do good, and so I'm thankful for that. And so that's the short, like that's the most recent, like if we look at a timeline of my life,
mhm.
the reason that I'm in this moment at the institute is because Michelle asked and I said yes. But there's a long sort of trajectory of how I ended up in this, in this space to even be able to say yes. And it's partly why I'm here. Like, I'm in one of my favorite bookstores in town, and I chose to like interview here. Michelle was like, interview in front of your, some of your art. And I was like, at my house because it's on my walls. And I was like, but I really want to be interviewing here because what's got me started is my grandmother was a librarian, and I used to sit, if I wasn't outside playing some kind of sports, I was like inside in the library, grabbing a book and sitting up in this little comfy chair in the corner of one of the rooms. And that's really where I felt like most at home. And so I wanted to be surrounded by books today for this because really I think the first thing that got me here is my grandmother. Um, and so for me to think about the Institute, my role there is Director of Education. And that's really sort of the goal of that is like multi-layered, um, focusing on bringing the academy or, colleges and universities into the community where the Institute is. So that, so often, having been a professor for like half my life, and this too, being in the academy, like being in college and being surrounded by sort of a silo of people that think that the only knowledge there is in those four walls or on that,
Yeah.
that tract of land or whatever. And, Michelle and I both have never believed, even though we both have for longtime professors, never believed that that's where the wisdom was. The wisdom is in the community,
That's very
the knowledge is in the community, and the classroom is a place to push people toward believing that and knowing that. And so that is, for me, that's the heart of the institute, and the heart of my goal is to bring that out into the community so that the people in the academy can learn what's can learn, right? Like the community is the teacher, and so I'll be spending a lot of my time trying to make those sorts of partnerships, um, and then I'll also be helping to facilitate like whatever kinds of educational learning, creative experiences that the community wants to offer. Um, the East Side community wants to offer to the larger community. So,
yeah.
so it's pretty widespread in terms of my role, and I'm really excited. I'm working with interns. I'm working with community members. I'm working with history. I'm working with poetry. I'm working with art. Working with literature. Working with bringing like the liberal arts sort of together in terms of how it can teach and how it can shift community and how it can move forward social justice. So
Mm. Okay. Yeah, I was
yeah.
gonna ask like if there was a specific subject matter because when we think of education,
Hmm.
we start to try to zone in and narrow.
Right.
I think
Right.
that's dope that it will sort of be all encompassing. This sort of holistic idea of education that is not confined just to the four walls of a college or university.
Or
What
even
role
yeah. Go ahead.
does access play for you in this work?
Mm.
As we're talking about public scholarship and being sort of vast in the education and the programming that we're looking to offer, where do you see access in that, and how important is that, like as a core value for what you're doing with this?
I think it's an important core value. I love that you asked that question because I think it's an important core value. Period. Right. Like that access. Um, access generally, and I mean, there's so many levels, so I'm not gonna. I think I'm just trying to keep myself zoned in for a second, even though I'm, you know, but I
Me
think
too. No,
access.
you got the right one. So,
Good, good. I think one of the good things about one of the important things about access is just like what you were saying about how when you were originally going to ask me like what subject or what what focus am I. I think I think a big part of people feeling like they can access um, what we'll be doing at the institute, or let me say more. I think one of the ways that people will feel like that space, whatever space we occupy, is their space by not limiting what we can do in that space. And that means not limiting what we can do in our brains, right? Like, I remember, I mean, it's so wild that universities, colleges and universities still ask us to major or minor and only have like one major, one minor, or you can double major. But then if you do, people are like, whoa, sure you can handle all that. Like, so why limit the brain? Like, the
mm,
access that so there's a kind of level of access that says you come here, um, you explore all of what you want to explore, and it comes together because it's in you, like, you know what I mean, like,
wow.
um, so there's that kind of access that I probably could articulate more if I went down
No,
that
that's
rabbit
deep.
hole.
I didn't even like consider that. Like, okay, yeah,
But I also think just by sheer virtue of same public scholarship, right? That means access, right? Because so many people think, oh, I'm not smart enough to go to this college or this university. I'm not smart enough
right.
to, or I
College ain't
have
for
to do.
everybody. Y'all better be. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, exactly. Or that it has to show up a certain way, or that
Right.
you have to go to it and instead of it coming to you. Do you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like, so for me, access means one, not having people come to us, right? Being rooted in the communities that we're serving, um, and like being complementary to the community, meaning like I'm not gonna. I guess I'm gonna back. Access means that things come to you, that they
Right.
come to your space, that you don't have to go take 5 buses or have a car or have a certain GPA or have
Mm-hmm.
taken a certain test or have a certain amount of money to
Yeah.
be able to be in this place, and to be able to all the words I'm thinking are so like contribute, all that stuff is like they have to, like somebody has to give you something, right? Like, I'm not, I think access means show up, the space is there, um, the resources are there,
Yeah.
the barriers are gone, um, and so for me it's 100% important to be in the communities we serve, and that, I think that's the first point of access. So
Yeah. That's radical. Like,
it's,
for real.
isn't
That's
it?
I love that. I love that. That really changes the game. Like you said, the barriers being gone really allows people to grow without a specific expectation. Like they can create
Mm,
one for themselves of,
yes.
I'm really hoping to focus on this, or learn this aspect of myself through this workshop, through this reading, whatever the case. But like not because if I don't do this as it's laid out for me, I'm failing, and then what do I do, right? I
Exactly.
think the lack
Right.
of access so much leaves us without a next step, leaves us
Yes.
without even what feels like value and self-worth, and we know that that's not the truth, but
That's sad though.
because our society is so focused on what are you producing, and
Yes.
it's not
Yes.
how are you being, it's how are you doing, what are you
Yes.
doing, what do you do, hi my name is, what do you do, like it
Exactly. That's the next
defines us
question.
so much, like that, because of the lack of access to so much education, basic needs even, right, it
Yes.
seems to define us in our society. So that's like that's radical. That's amazing work.
I love how you said that too. And like when you were saying that, I was thinking about like the way that it's tied to self worth, and like if I don't accomplish this in the ways that they've laid it out for me, then what am I? Who do I? What do I do? But so I think it's really about accessing possibility too, right? Like
Mm,
that idea of not having to have a particular curriculum unless it's one that you want to design and want support on, or
yeah,
you know, like if I know that I can, sometimes it's scary to have so much opportunity and possibility, right?
yeah,
Like if I know
sky
I
is
can
the
walk,
limit is limiting
yeah,
because where do I
yeah,
start?
yeah, exactly. But hopefully, but once I think once we get through that barrier, that fear,
Mm,
then it's like okay, now there is no failure, right?
mm,
There is no failure. There's only being and thinking and producing what you want to produce if you want to produce, and if you don't, you like I think that kind of access and opportunity or availability, because
mm.
opportunity also feels like I'm giving somebody something, and that's not what I'm
Yep,
trying to say.
yep.
But that is
Scary,
I think,
right?
yeah, exactly. I think that kind of I think that kind of space is like um, transformative for communities generally. Like
Mm,
I'm a much better being to be in relationship with if I'm able to have that space that doesn't limit me, right? Like, so even if I'm not producing a new book or a series of paintings or or an essay or a play, I'm in myself without barriers
yeah,
and borders. And so that means when I move to the next spot, I carry that energy with me, and that changes the space that I'm in next. You know what I mean? So like I feel like it's so vast and so open and so energizing. Like I have this cold today and I'm like kind of dragging, and then just as I'm talking about this, I'm like my head's getting lighter, I'm like I'm
yeah,
starting to be able to breathe more, like my heart's opening up, I
yep.
mean that's what the institute is to me,
That's so good.
on all the levels that it shows up on,
Right?
right?
Because that passion invigorates you, it charges you up, it electrifies you. Like,
It really does.
yo, I'm tired, but I love this work, or I'm really
Hmm.
feeling the monotony of doing things over and over, or
Yep.
not taking care of ourselves is part of it, right? Shout out to Michael with
It is.
Quest to Recover. Like when we're not doing
Exactly,
that,
thanks Micah.
we still have a moment where it's like, yo, that just changed somebody's life. My life
Yep.
matters not just because of, look, I accomplished this thing, but other people are the better for it because I
Yes.
persevered, and it really changes
Exactly.
in your body of like, wow, I guess I'm not as tired as I was 20 minutes ago when I just heard that thing, or when someone just gave me a positive reinforcement of like, wow, thank you, that helped me. It
Yep.
that's so good that it physically wakes us up when we do
It,
passionate work. Okay. So going back to sort of your introduction,
mhm.
you do so much. You're just
Mm.
an extraordinaire. The only way I can I can put
Kind of
it,
gas me up. All
you're an
right, I'll take it.
extraordinaire. So
I appreciate that.
you're a professor, you're an author, you're a poet, you're an artist, you're a chef, and tell me about this new material that's on the shelves.
It's on the shelf right back there.
Yeah.
It is. It's on the shelf right back behind me in the poetry section, and it's actually this book, A Ligature for Black. Bodies is crossed out because we are not bodies only.
That's right.
And so that's really important to me. And the book is a collection of poetry and primary sources, that liberal arts connection again, right? Like,
Mm,
so we've got history, um, documentation of story. So basically, it's a collection that focuses on the murders of Black and Brown people, particularly Black people. I should say in this
okay.
particular collection. So Black people who have been killed by police or at the hands of the criminal justice system. And so it starts. It was the thing that made me start writing this book was the Tamir Rice verdict way back, but chose not to prosecute, but said that though he'll supply dash cams and body cams for all the officers um, in the Cleveland Police Department, and he said that will help. And if we know anything about the Tamir Rice verdict, the Tamir Rice murder, we know that there were over 20 minutes of footage from the time the police pulled in, through the time that they shot him, through the time that they put his sister, who was there, um, and of course, rightly so, just um, breaking down. And they put her in the back of the police car. And so there's all of that footage, and it didn't help. All it did, I think, was really serve to make Black people realize over and over and over again how how much we are at the mercy, at the end of the gun of a criminal justice system. And so it reminded me of like the um, the lynching postcards that people sent across the country, in the early 1900s. They'd take pictures of at the lynchings and make them postcards and send them to friends across the country. Like, what are we as Black people supposed to think about that when we see ourselves being killed over and over and over? So the only way that I could make it through that, there was a period where I felt like every day I was worried about looking, when I woke up, looking online at all, because I was like, there's going to be another person killed.
Mm.
So I needed to take those stories in like poison and put them out like some kind of medicine. So basically, these are all confessions. I call almost all the poems confessions, because I imagine what it would it be like if the police officers had to actually speak about what they did, right? Because they often don't have to do that. So the poems, I researched autopsy reports, police reports, listened to interviews, to get as much primary firsthand accounts as I could, even from the police officers' mouths. And then I made most of this into persona poems, or poems in the voices of the police officers, the newspaper reporters, and that's what the book is. So
Yeah, that's
it's
incredible.
a lot, but thank you.
Woo! That's incredible.
It was a lot. It was a lot. It was a lot,
Yeah.
for sure. But I'm glad I did it, and I'm glad that the press that picked it up. It got released here in the UK, in Ireland, and in Canada. So, and it's already won an award or two. So, yeah.
Okay. So even though you've already made some tractions with the like with awards and everything, like what is I hear catharsis as a huge theme of you putting it
Absolutely.
together.
Yep.
So like what's sort of your long-term vision and hope for this, as you are in the first year of it, it seems, in terms of
Hmm.
having it released. I mean, it clearly you've been working on it for a long time, right? Tamir Rice
Yeah.
did not just happen.
No.
And
Yeah, it's like the bookends of it in some wild way, or Tamir Rice, and then Breonna Taylor, George Floyd, and
right,
so,
right.
and many people in between. I think that the book came out in August, and originally when it got picked up, it was before COVID. So the original plan was I would be able to travel to Europe
Mm,
and do readings and travel across the country. So that definitely has shifted, but it still have like it was picked as one of the top, I think, 5 poetry books for National Poetry Month,
wow.
um, in in um, in Britain, and so it's still getting a lot of traction, and I'm getting to do a lot of readings. I think, I'm sad that I don't get to travel to places, but I've gotten to do a lot of Zoom readings, and then I've also gotten to do a lot of in-person readings, just locally. And the books
Yeah.
keep selling out. They keep selling out, and there are professors across the country that are using it. So
Mm,
I really wanted to create conversation, and I think it's already done that. And it also was, the smaller version of it was made into a play that's been produced, before the book even came out, and so it's gotten a lot of traction as well. So I think I want the conversation to continue. Like I want people to pick it up and say, come talk to my class, or let's have a conversation, or
mm,
I think that's a part of like the liberal arts, and putting putting primary sources with poetry
Mm,
is to show that, like, I feel like um, James Baldwin said the role of the artist is exactly the same as the role of the lover, to make you conscious of what you don't see. And I feel like that's what I always want my poetry to do, to make people aware of some of the layers of story that we don't really necessarily get when we just see um, an a post on Instagram, or
hmm.
a short article on Facebook, or whatever the case may be.
Yeah,
So.
yeah, great stuff. Okay. Last question. What do Is it crazy to think that maybe you would write a textbook, or again, you do so many things, and your poetry is completely captivating, right? So
Oh, thank
as
you.
you continue to do your work as an author and a professor, um is that a crazy idea? I don't know, that just sort of dropped in me as I was hearing you talk, like, as a director of education for the institute, as we're talking about access, as we're talking about making poetry primary, and collecting that with primary sources for
Hmm.
the confines of those four walls of a college or an institution, right? Like, what are your thoughts on that? I don't know. I don't.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on
Well, I love.
a textbook?
Look, you just all right. I'm gonna do it. I love doing curriculum. I love writing curriculum. And I've gotten to do that in a couple different ways. One with Michelle, Dr. Johnson, doing when she was the historian for the state of Michigan, and um, we wrote middle school curriculum for resistance to slavery and the Underground
Mm,
Railroad, and I love writing curriculum. So I could totally see doing a textbook that sort of breaks the confines of what's traditional, and could combine, even thinking of poetry as primary source, because so often poets are writing about what's happening, and are, as artists, I mean,
yeah,
like there'll be a protest, or there'll be a murder, or there'll be something, and a vocalist writes a song, you know what I mean?
yeah,
Um, so I think that there's so much possibility, and yeah, I would love to do that.
yeah,
And also, like, the institute's going to have a press, so that's something we did before, and I think it's important. It's another opportunity for access. The publishing industry can be so hard to break into,
mm,
um, and it doesn't need to be. And there are so many voices that don't get heard, and so yeah. So maybe that textbook could come out
yeah.
um,
Because again, with
through
the
the Institute
access,
Press.
why is it
Yep,
so hard to get published?
exactly,
That's
exactly. So yeah,
that's
so
beautiful, full circle. This is
look at you go. You
amazing.
know what you're doing.
Any parting words? You got a statement, a mic drop for the people? You know what I'm saying? Like,
Well, I already put out my James Baldwin quote a little bit too
yeah,
early for the
that
mic
that
drop,
wrecked
but
me. I'm like putting that on the wall tonight in
that
like
is some serious
Sharpie.
stuff. Exactly, exactly. No, I think my next thing I'm working on right now is a play, based on a series of poems I did, that is called "How to Make an American Mass Shooter," and
Mm,
the play itself is going to be called "Before the Shooting," and that's coming out um, in December 9th, 10th, and 11th, and I
mm,
think after that. I'm gonna get into some self love stuff. I think I've been I've been battling a lot of, like, what's out there,
mm,
and it's been really important to me to do that. But I think then also seeing how to, that quote again, the role of the artist is exactly the same as the role of the lover,
mhm.
to make you conscious of what you don't see. But I think sometimes when I'm trying to love the world so much by putting this hard stuff out there to hopefully shift some things, I can lose sight of loving myself in ways that, you know that
Yep.
can be both still, like, me revealing or looking at stuff that I'm trying to work on. And so I think that's where my next that might be where I'm digging into next. So
Yeah, yeah. That's so. I don't know what else to say. That's so good. It's me. It's so many Black people, especially
say, yeah.
women, Black women. Like, we all need an assistant or four just to
Oh,
like deal with everything that's in front of us, let
and
alone
our assistants
dealing
need
with what has
assistants.
come
Yep.
behind us, dealing with what's on the side of us. Like, that's so powerful.
So true. Mm.
Well, thank you. That's all
Thank you,
I
Jess.
have. I will, I'll clean it all up in editing.
I
And
love